Tim's News Explosion. 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 Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Tim's News Explosion on this Monday, the 22nd of January, 2024. We are live on the Wilmsfront YouTube channel, the Wilmsfront Odyssey channel, and I've got working tonight the Wilmsfront Rumble channel. It is 9 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where we are once again the place to flee, with youth gangs terrorising suburban families. And remember that the now Allan Government is still proceeding with its raising the age of criminal responsibility from 10 to 15, and also softening bail laws, particularly for youth offenders. And now, obviously, when I talk about youth crime, a lot of people know what I'm talking about when I have these inverted commas that you can see. Hello to everyone in the chat, Dawn Browning and Peak Aussieman. Now, obviously, last week we saw the tragic death, we have to say, via alleged stabbing of Doncaster, of the Doncaster Doctor Ash Gordon, only 33 years old. Two 16-year-olds have been charged with his murder. Also last week, a 79-year-old fisherman was pushed over into Port Phillip Bay by a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old in a so-called prank. It's just a prank, bro. And so a 14 and 17-year-old have been arrested. Now, in both of those cases, one of the offenders charged was on bail for a previous offence. Maybe we need to change the state slogan to out on bail. Now, Victoria Police, they are still busy arresting a whole bunch of youth gang members who terrorised Melburnians in home invasions from last year. This was from 9 News last night.
Police have swooped on a gang accused of a dozen violent home invasions in Melbourne's west. 8 youths have been charged with robbing and threatening innocent victims with machetes. Crime reporter Gillian Lantouris has this exclusive report.
From an 18-year-old cuffed in Caroline Springs to a once promising young hockey player. They're just 2 of 8 males arrested over a string of terrifying alleged home invasions.
This offending is very serious and it's on the higher end of the scales.
Detectives from Brimbank charged the youths aged between 16 and 28 with more than 140 offences, following a dozen alleged aggravated home invasions between May and November last year, across 9 suburbs in the west.
Offenders were armed with a plethora of weapons, including machetes, gardening shears and other implements.
Their oldest alleged victim, a 75-year-old man. Their youngest, just 12 months old. 9 News spoke to the traumatised mother who begged for her infant daughter's life when she says the gang broke into their Keilor Park home.
I was like, please, I have a baby. We don't give an F about your baby.
While a 52-year-old teacher was seriously injured when the youths, allegedly armed with machetes and an axe, tried to break into his Braybrook home.
The bone has been chopped somehow, the tendon has been damaged, an index finger and a middle finger.
This will have a substantial impact on their life life moving forward, and they're traumatised as a result of the offending.
Despite the efforts of police and being charged with more than 30 serious offences, the 18-year-old alleged ringleader has already been bailed. Daniel Hudson's family told the court his mental health spiralled during the pandemic and offered a $7,000 surety to keep him out of jail. Hudson will face a magistrate again next month.
We'd just like to reassure the public that everybody's got the right to feel safe in their own home.
Gillian Lantouris, 9 News.
Yes, I feel very reassured by Victoria Police there. It's almost become that Simpsons meme that goes around, say the line, he was out on bail, he was bailed, yay, except it's not a cheerful or humorous matter. I mean, we're getting to the stage now where in Melbourne to actually feel, because a lot of these families that are victims of home invasions cast on, they have CCTV alarms, doesn't prevent these masked youths coming in. You either have to live in a gated community or live in an apartment where obviously home invaders, they aren't going to go up, say, 10 stories in an apartment complex. I've never heard of home invaders targeting a apartment complex, but they do go for the wealthy areas. Obviously, Brighton last year, Beck Judd, she led the public campaign. The public awareness that there was home invasions in Brighton. I shouldn't say campaign because, well, nothing really happened in terms of the substantial police or political response. Doncaster is a wealthy area where that doctor was murdered. So there was another home invasion in Mount Waverley. And now, Victoria Police, they are also failing to stop economic terrorists who have been blocking road access to the Port of Melbourne for 4 days now. These are permanent pro-Palestinian activists. They claim that they are blocking the Port of Melbourne to stop Zim container ships, which have a Israeli ownership. They claim that here in Melbourne, they're being stocked full of weapons and shipped off to Israel. But as a consequence of their economic terrorism, there are 6 ships that have been delayed in docking, and 45,000 containers are just sitting there in the Port of Melbourne that have been unable to be moved. And this is costing all of us, pushing the price of groceries and essential goods up even further. And Victoria Police, they've only just now got the pepper spray out after day 4. I mean, where are the rubber bullets that they shot at peaceful anti-lockdown protesters? I mean, where also are the water cannons? I mean, I believe that it should be legal for those Port of Melbourne trucks to just run over the protesters. So that should be a law that should be passed. Fuck around and find out. But yeah, Victoria Police, after 4 days, decide that they'll move them. And there have been many dock workers who have been stood down. Ones who have been able to work, they've had to secretly go on a boat and to actually get around the road. So actually, they've had to go by ferry to be able to do their job. So they're affecting the wages of hardworking working class people, but these people don't care because they're just whatever causes the current thing, whether it's, they'll all be at Invasion Day rallies on Australia Day in the CBD in 4 days time. And this isn't the only disruption at our ports. There is also the dispute between the Maritime Union, which is now part of the CMMEFU, the giant militant union, versus DP World. Again, that's costing our economy, pushing up the cost of living for all of us. But Victoria Police, they still have as one of their highest priorities the prosecution of Jacob Hirschner for that alleged attempted Nazi salute outside of the county court after he and Thomas Sewell had been sentenced for their violent disorder over the confrontation with the Antifa stalkers who followed them to the Cathedral Ranges back in May 2021. The prosecution is seeking a custodial sentence because the maximum is 12 months for doing a Nazi salute in public view in Victoria. And the federal laws, you remember from last week, they make it so that it's through the internet as well. So rather than play a mainstream media report featuring De Vere about Jacob's most recent court appearance, let's hear from Jacob himself, who through his Telegram channels has released a series of video statements. And this is on the Victorian government's attempt to jail him for a year for a horizontal hand movement.
The Australian government is trying to throw me in prison, in solitary confinement for up to a year, because they allege that I gave a political salute, the Roman salute. These laws are against freedom of expression. They are built on emotion and they are anti-white. This government cannot claim to be a democracy. It cannot claim to be liberal when it is trying to imprison its opponents for simply speaking against them. This country should have freedom of expression. We should be allowed to express ourselves when the government is pursuing policy that is not to our interests.
And speaking of government not listening to the democratic will of the people, the Albanese government, despite their Aboriginal voice to the Parliament and Executive being voted down 60-40 in the referendum last year, Anthony Albanese is still leading the change, abolish the date campaign by stealth. The only senior Labor leader who has publicly stated they are going to celebrate Australia Day is New South Wales Premier Chris Minns. So he's very much a savvy centrist Labor leader. I mean, he knows what public opinion is, and the Institute of Public Affairs, which I used to be a member of many years ago, they conducted an Australia Day poll, and with 3 questions. So the first one was, I am proud to be Australian. 87% are proud to be Australian. Yet in our CBDs on Australia Day, we have all of these activists shouting shame, 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 and they just don't want to change the date. They want to, abolish the date because they believe Australia doesn't deserve a date. Well, they also want to abolish Australia as well. Only 4% said they're not proud to be Australian, and 9% didn't have an opinion. Now going to question 2, Australia has a history to be proud of. It goes down to 69% agree. That's still an overwhelming majority. Only 15% disagree and 16% neither agree or disagree. And then question 3, Australia Day should be celebrated on 26th of January. 63% agree, 17% disagree, and 20% neither agree nor disagree. But this week we saw, because Anthony Albanese, he just says, we have no plans to change the date of Australia Day. Well, he also said a couple of weeks back, we have no plans to revise the stage 3 tax cuts. And Anthony Albanese, remember, he's holding that emergency caucus meeting on Wednesday to address the cost of living, where he's going to revise the stage 3 tax cuts. Whenever a politician says they have no plans to do something, they secretly want to do something, but they just know that they can't get away with it. So Anthony Albanese, he would love to change the date of Australia Day. So would Jacinta Allan, the Victorian Premier, Labor and the Greens, apart from the sane Chris Minns. Most of them would love to not just change the date, but abolish the day. So despite the defeat of The Voice and poll after poll saying the overwhelming majority of Australians support Australia Day, we have more corporate virtue signalling against Australia Day, this time coming from taxpayer funded sporting body. Again, Anthony Albanese outsourcing his dirty work, his culture wars to the corporate. So the Australian Open isn't going to commemorate Australia Day. So how can it be the Australian Open? Is it just the Open or the NAM Open? Ugh. And at the Cricket Australia, at the next test against the West Indies at the Gabba, they're not going to, well, they are going to mention Australia Day, but its day has different meanings for different people. Now, the people who claim that Australia Day defenders, we shouldn't be in a position where we're having to defend our national day. The gaslighting journalists say, oh, Australia Day, it's become very divisive. Well, people who celebrate Australia Day didn't make it divisive. It was the media amplifying the anti-Australian activists and the politicians allowing our CBDs to be taken over on Australia Day by Australia-hating Invasion Day activists, where with a megaphone they yell at people who dare have Australian flags on them. So the CBD is now basically no-go zone for Australian flags on Australia Day. I mean, Ricky T was almost lynched on Australia Day 2018 at Flinders Street Station for having an Australian flag. Neil Erickson was physically removed by police on 2019. And the Australia Day parade has been cancelled by the Labor government, though I have previously said that it's basically a opening ceremony of the Olympics with like the Filipino Australian, the Nepalese Australians. It's basically a multicultural parade. And this is where the cringe conservatives, when they talk about, oh, migrants, they are the greatest embraces of Australia Day. This is why we need to have it and why they need to become citizens on Australia Day. Well, we've got quite enough new Australians already. This was Advance. So that is the conservative lobby group. So it quotes Paul Murray, the reason I celebrate Australia Day is because modern Australia is one of the greatest multicultural experiments in the world. Really? I mean, I think you could say it's one of the least bad multicultural experiments. I mean, just watch the first part of this program to see why we're not a successful multicultural country. Though European countries, they are definitely worse multicultural countries. And Australia, we will gain our 27th millionth Australian this Thursday, just before Australia Day. And so we had a letter from Migration Watch, which is a great activist Twitter account, a open letter to the Minister for Immigration. And even though the Liberals and Nationals are talking tough that they want to curtail immigration, I mean, they'll just betray you as well. I mean, Peter Dutton, he's Israel first and India a very close second. So, dear Minister, last year, Australia took in 737,000 migrants. In net terms, we added 525,000 new migrants to our population in just 12 months. This is the largest intake Australia has ever seen and one of the largest per capita migrant intakes in the world. Our population grew by 2.4%, and 1 in 36 people in Australia arrived last year. These are astronomical numbers, yet nobody asked for them. 70% of Australians want low migration, including a majority of Labor voters. You ignored every single one of them. The effects of this policy, combined with decades of large migrant intake numbers, are now being felt everywhere across Australia. Speaking for my friends, family members, and colleagues, our wages are flat, our rents have gone up, our dreams of buying homes and raising a family are becoming more distant. The data backs this up. Wages are at 2009 levels, rents are up 20%, house prices have grown 40 to 50% in 10 years, and birth rates have fallen. But we're still the lucky ones. Others have been completely pushed out of the market. Homelessness has gone up 50% in 1 year. Tents now fill up parks and crowds under bridges. Thanks to you, your party, and a succession of other governments, Lucky Country is now the country of the working poor. We once had the highest standards of living in the world. Now, sadly, I don't think that the Immigration Minister, Andrew Giles, will respond. Now, of course, as I have mentioned previously, rather than just be on the defensive about Australia Day, a group of patriots are now going on the offensive with the Australia Month campaign. I will put the link to the petition in the chat again if you haven't signed it. So because January 1 is Federation Day, and then, well, the landing of the first fleet was actually on January 18, but at Botany Bay, though the Union Jack wasn't planted by Governor Arthur Phillip on Sydney Cove until January 26. So why not have the whole of Australia Month? I mean, there's a whole LGBT Pride Month. So this was started by Ben Shan, Dusty Bogan, who is now on Bogan Christian Lobby. I'm going to be speaking with him hopefully next Sunday now because he was sick yesterday. I wonder if it's the COVID coup for it's as something else. But he's a pretty strong bloke. He'll be able to shake that illness off in no time. Now, going on to the main focus of tonight's show, the 2024 World Economic Forum meeting. The globalists gathered in their Davos Lair. And so the theme of this year was rebuilding trust, which means that they are self-aware, that they know that more of the global population no longer trust them. And Klaus Schwab, in his opening remarks, he pinpointed the main two drivers of why there is not as much trust of them as there was 4 years ago.
So steeply transformative challenges, which are actually the cornerstone of our program, lead to uncertainty, generalized fear, and pessimism. They force us into a mode of short-term crisis management at the detriment of long-term strategic and sustainable solutions. This reactionary approach undermines our collective faith in the future. And here we losing the face of our future, we risk to become much more ego-centered and on a national and individual level. To break this cycle, we need a paradigm shift. We must rebuild trust, and that's actually the theme of our meeting. We have to rebuild trust. Trust in our future, trust in our capacity to overcome challenges, and most importantly, trust in each other.
Yes, so he views as a threat individualism and nationalism to rebuilding trust and having faith in the future. And obviously, Klaus Schwab, as many people point out, you couldn't design a more stereotypical, cartoonish globalist villain. I mean, Ian Fleming, Inspector. I mean, he probably the World Economic Forum, I would say, even trumps the fiction of Spectre with the havoc that it wreaks over the world. And now you would say the second most powerful person in the globalist cabal is the unelected EU president, Ursula von der Leyen, a ex-German politician. And this is what she believed is the main threat to their new world order, them retaining power in 2024.
For the global business community, the top concern for the next 2 years is not conflict or climate. It is disinformation and misinformation, followed closely by polarization within our societies. These risks are serious because they limit our ability to tackle the big global challenges we are facing. Changes in our climate and our geopolitical climate, shifts in our demography and in our technology, spiraling regional conflicts and intensified geopolitical competition and their impacts on supply chains. The sobering reality is that we are once again competing more intensely across countries than we have in several decades. And this makes the theme of this year's Davos meeting even more relevant: rebuilding trust. This is not a time for conflicts or polarization. This is a time to build trust. This is a time to drive global collaboration more than ever before. This requires immediate and structural responses to match the size of the global challenges. I believe it can be done.
I think I figured out the translation. So rebuilding trust through countering mis and disinformation, facts they don't like. Trust is code word for brainwashing. And now this is the top global risks in 2024. This is what the World Economic Forum believe are the greatest global risks. So extreme weather is the top at 66%. AI generated misinformation and disinformation, 53%. Societal or political polarization, 46%. Cost of living crisis, well, which they cause, 42%. Cyber attacks, 39%. Economic downturn, well, which they've caused as well, 33%. Disrupted supply chains, 25%. Escalation of outbreak of armed conflict, 25%. Well, that's already happened. Attack on critical infrastructure, 19%. Disrupted supply chains for food, 18%. Censorship, erosion of free speech, 16%. I mean, well, they are the censors, the eroders of free speech. Disrupted supply chains for energy, 14%. Well, that's caused by their energy policies. Public debt distress, 14%, caused also by the pandemic lockdown policies. Skills or labor shortages, 13%. Accident or intentional nuclear event, 12%. Violent civil strikes and riots, 11%. Accidental or intentional release of biological agents, 9%. Institutional collapse within the financial sector, 7%. Housing bubble burst, 4%. And tech bubble burst, 4%. So yes, that is, well, you could call. Would you call that what they believe are the greatest threats to their power, or what will give them the most power? Because they're the ones that say we have the solutions to these global crises. And so is that what that lists mean? I'd love for you to let me know your interpretation in the comments. So though there was a disruption at the World Economic Forum by Damon Inami. This is what he got up and said.
And I appreciate the World Economic Forum providing me the opportunity to be on this stage and say, fuck you, Klaus Schwab, and fuck your New World Order. We, the people, were born free, we will stay free, and you and all of your globalist friends, including everyone in this room, can go fuck yourself.
No, that actually didn't happen. That was a photoshopped satire there. But he said what we were all thinking, basically. Now, another global leader who attended Davos was the new Argentinian president, Javier Milei, the libertarian anarcho-capitalist. Now, I forgot to download his speech. It was translated into English, but I've managed to quickly whip it up. He decided to go there to give the globalist control freaks a serve. And so this is what he said.
Good afternoon. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. Today, I'm here to tell you that the Western world is in danger. And it is endangered because those who are supposed to have to defend the values of the West are co-opted by a vision of the world that inexorably leads to socialism and thereby to poverty. Unfortunately, in recent decades, motivated by some well-meaning individuals willing to help others, and others motivated by the wish to belong to a privileged caste, the main leaders of the Western world have abandoned the model of freedom for different versions of what we call collectivism. We're here to tell you that collectivist experiments are never the solution to the problems that afflict the citizens of the world. Rather, they are the root cause. Believe me, no one better placed than us, Argentines, to testify to these 2 points.
Amen, brother. And Javier Milei, even though he only took office on December the 10th, his achievements are piling up. So this was compiled just by the N-Wokeness account on Twitter. And this was just 18 days in. Before the start of the year, eliminated 12 out of the 21 cabinet posts, firing 5,000 government employees, ending 380,000 government regulations, banned woke language in the military, bill to affirm the right to self-defense, bill to legalize homeschooling of kids, proposal to punish all riot organizers, future welfare cuts for road blocking, legalize paying contracts in Bitcoin, privatization of state-run oil companies, opened up the Argentinian oil industry. Now, despite his him clearly demonstrating that he's the real deal. He's not going to die wondering. He's going to go full in and give Argentina the economic restart that they need. There are still critics on the dissident right who seem to want him to be a failure or a disappointment or a plant or a traitor like Georgia Maloney turned out to be. And Joel Davis was one of those who criticized Millet for tongue kissing this girl on the stage. So he said, libertarianism in a nutshell, no respect for authority, not even his own, therefore no sense of obligation to rule with dignity. The pursuit of pleasure is all that matters to him, not building a legacy, a middle-aged guy with no kids and a slutty attention whore girlfriend. Pathetic. Well, Javier Millet didn't campaign on family values, and he will leave a legacy for Argentina, bringing in peace and prosperity. That's what gives the local population the confidence to start a family and have children. Rents have already decreased by 20% in Argentina with the deregulation of the housing market, because in North Asia, in Japan, People's Republic of China, Taiwan, South Korea, their birth rates are absolutely catastrophic because young people have no certainty about the future. They're not. They don't feel that they can confidently or have the means and money to start a family. And in prosperous times, in the 80s in the United States, during the Reagan decade, certainly it wasn't perfect. But remember also going back even further after the end of World War II, because the violence, killing and dying on a mass scale had ended, then there was a population boom in Western countries. That's why there was that's why they're called the baby boomers, because there was a boom after the war. And so Javier Millet, I mean, he's was elected because he was a eccentric personality. I mean, Donald Trump, he was elected despite his history of being a womanizer and that grab him by the pussy, Access Hollywood tape being leaked. There was another critique of Millet that was published on the National Observer, which is run by John Lawson. If I can just, I thought I had all of the things here. I'll get it up in a moment. Here we go. Here, I got it here. So this was written by Percy Spender, so the proxy president, and it mentions, of course, the fact that Javier Millet is a Zionist, which, I mean, if you're going to dismiss any good world leader because they support Israel, I mean, I don't think that should be a deal breaker. And also, a lot of the dissident right have this support of BRICS, which Millet has withdrawn Argentina's membership. So BRICS is an anti-Western economic bloc. So it stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And the new members they admitted this year were Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. I don't think that a libertarian president is going to be in an economic alliance with a whole bunch of other nations which have totalitarian governments and who are responsible for human rights abuses. There seems to be among the dissident right any bloc which is anti-West is good because the West is so corrupt now, which is a stupid is a stupid contrarian position to have, that and Andy Nolt has as well. Western values and Western ideals, they are still the greatest ideals and values that mankind has ever produced. Obviously, most Western nations now are led by corrupt globalists, but obviously, Milei, there are politicians who come along at the right time, and he is not just saving Argentina, but making it great again. So I think that a lot of the dissident right, they just need to, a lot of it is about the personal disdain for libertarianism and capitalism. I know that Thomas Sowell, if you watch his streams, he's critical of libertarianism and capitalism because he believes that that dilutes national identity. But prosperous times, as I said, that if you want more babies and if you want stronger communities, I mean, poor nations where there's obviously a lot of crime, corruptions, that's certainly not what you want. And libertarian economics, I mean, it's the guaranteed path to prosperity. It's the law of economics, Austrian economics there. So I think a lot of Milei's critics, I think, just need to be so well, not just stubborn, but also just wanting a failure. Now, going back to the World Economic Forum, so we had the DEI panel. So in case you don't know, DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's the same thing as environmental social governance or corporate social responsibility. This was a mashup by the real Rukshan. And it was just full of cringe about how you just need to promote diversity for the sake of diversity, not because of not the best person for the job who will help your business.
We really do have a diverse panel here to talk about how diversity, quality, inclusion in organizations, in our thinking, can be implemented.
And coming as a white man of advanced age from a continental European background.
Because inclusion is about see me and hear me and make space for me.
So that diversity ensures better growth, is fairer, more equitable societies, and trickles down in so many other ways in our societies.
It's very important that you have a DEI initiative.
A lot of allies across the organizations. I think allyship is a big opportunity.
And I learned engaging in LGBTQ activities of colleagues who are passionate about that.
Diversity does lead to better growth, better decisions being made.
Hiring DEI teams have actually increased by 169%.
Accessibility for all, representation for all, inclusion for all.
Awareness for all kind of aspects of DEI, that we bring that to every client meeting.
I want a show of hands of what we think about setting targets for inclusion. Are we for targets? Caroline's just made a case. Show of hands, the panel and participants, show of hands for
Thank God, are some of you holding up your hands like
Yes,
that?
yes. I will give you a summary of, I would say, about 50%.
But it depends on what the target is, right? It's the
Good, I like that.
The debate
I was just going to say, Michael, you didn't put up your hand. Tell me what your thinking was.
I'll let my hand down because target for me is very formal, very mechanistic.
The metric, then.
Metric is something I accept, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, metric.
And for me, it starts with awareness. Look.
Paleoconservative Australian says diversity equals less white people. Well, inclusion equals the exclusion of white people, and equity means the unequal treatment of white people. And Dawn Browning says DEI equals destroy everything in it, and Paleoconservative Australian says it's die, Tim. Well, DEI could lead to you dying. You remember that Alaskan Airlines Boeing plane, which a window just burst open during the flight. The Gateway Pundit published this article, and Elon Musk also brought attention to it, that Boeing, in their SEC filings, they decided to change their priorities, so they would no longer prioritize safety. Instead, they would prioritize DEI hiring over safety. Can you believe it, that they'd put anything above safety? And so the filing reads, while our 2021 design incorporated operational performance in the areas of product safety, employee safety, and quality for 2022, we will add 2 other focus areas critical to our long-range business plans: climate, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And executives get a $1 million bonus per year for those who meet the company's DEI goals. And one of the major US airlines, United CEO Scott Kirby, is a part-time drag queen, and seems to, well, just not keep his drag performances for adults only. And this was Scott Kirby talking to Axios on CBS about how United Airlines is going to be hiring their pilots on diversity grounds.
We have committed that 50% of the class of the classes will be women or people of color. Today, only 19% of our pilots at United Airlines are women or people of color. And by the way, from all the data I've seen, that's the highest of any airline in the country.
White males don't just dominate in the cockpits, also in the C-suite at United Airlines.
Well, look, at United, I'm proud of the diversity that we actually have in our C-suite. I think if you look around corporate America.
Correct me if I'm saying, though, so this was just based off your website, the people you list as executives, but out of 11 people, 3 are women. I believe 1 is a person of color.
That's correct. But, in corporate America, I think,
That's a low bar. How do you raise your own bar?
Well, a lot of this is, focusing on it. We have programs one of the things we do is for every job when we do an interview, we require women and people of color to be involved in the interview process, bringing people in early in their careers as well, and giving them those opportunities and creating.
Now, the next Final Destination film will be the main character has a premonition about his death due to a DEI pilot. I'll just play this for you.
We have committed that 50.
Welcome aboard, folks. We are very proud to share that your pilot is the most diverse pilot on record. She is a 3'2" transgender pansexual Native American man who identifies as a 6'tall Korean woman. Any volunteers to help reach the controls are welcome. You will want to buckle up as her epilepsy is often triggered by the flashing lights in the cockpit. Remember to keep a whisper volume level, as she may have to consult instructional videos as a refresher during the flight. Now, can we get a big cheer for diversity?
Yes, that's on a Final Destination United Airlines flight on a Boeing plane. I mean, and now I found that a clip on Donenza memes account, but it was actually produced by another meme account called Apto Aptok Doz. I think I've said that right. So there's some wonderful meme accounts doing these mashups or deep fakes, which I find absolutely hilarious. Exactly. It'll be funny until it happens. Paleoconservative Australian, who wrote these policies to Vera Abramovich? Well, Jonathan Greenblatt, his US counterpart, he's wanting a diversity and inclusion of Jews in Hollywood, because apparently there's not enough. The issue is there's not enough Jewish actors, writers, directors in Hollywood. That's a huge crisis, apparently. Now, also featured at Davos 2024 was the discussion about disease X, and Tedros, the communist Ethiopian who runs the World Economic Forum, told us what the disease X name means.
After we started putting a placeholder, the first that came was in the disease X is COVID. So we have experience now, and we're preparing based on that experience. A lot of assessment has been done by independent panels and experts. And based on the recommendation, many initiatives we have already started many initiatives. And then the other key, in order to have better prepared and to address the disease X, is the pandemic agreement. The pandemic agreement can bring all the experience, all the challenges that we have faced, and all the solutions into one. And that agreement can help us to prepare for the future in a better way, because this is about a common enemy. And without a shared response, starting from the preparedness, we will face the same problem as COVID. And deadline for the pandemic agreement is May 2024, and member states are negotiating. This is between countries, and I hope they will deliver this pandemic agreement by that time, on the deadline.
Now, last year, media was reporting that scientists were already developing a vaccine for disease X. How can you develop a vaccine for a virus that doesn't even exist yet? Or you are secretly experimenting on a number of viruses in laboratories on gain of functions. And China, where the original COVID-19 disease X escaped from the Wuhan lab, they're at it again. They decided to develop another mutant coronavirus known as GXP2V, and decided that they would just kill a whole bunch of humanized mice with it. So they collected this coronavirus from a Malaysian pangolin in 2017. And so where are the animal rights activists, Peter, with these scientists who are just breeding rats, mutating their genes, and then just killing them with pathogens? Now, this was a preprint that was released. We have no idea which lab in China it was. This experiment was done, was at Wuhan again. So in the days before their death, the mice had quickly lost weight, exhibited a hunched posture, and moved extremely sluggishly. Most eerily of all, their eyes turned completely white. The day before they died, a GXP2V had infected the lungs, bones, eyes, trenches, and brains of the dead mice, the last of which was severe enough to cause ultimately the death of the animals there. Like, are they just doing this for shits and giggles? But of course, there is still US funding that gets siphoned off to go to these Chinese laboratories. And so the US Right to Know network, they finally got the smoking gun that US scientists had proposed and funded through Eco Alliance. This was it was called a diffuse grant. Instead, it didn't diffuse anything, led to a global pandemic. So I'm not sure if any of you remember that the head of Eco Health Alliance, can't remember his name off the top of my head. It's probably in here, Peter Dasnik. He was the first to say there it is there, Peter Daszak. So he was the first in around February, March 2020 to say this came from nature. This was not engineered in a lab. He protests too much. And Fauci, he funded so many gain of function experiments which contained cruelty to animals. I mean, and this is another aspect of the deep state as well. The fact that there is all of this US taxpayer funding going to communist China to conduct animal abusing, biologically dangerous experiments. And now, obviously, the main reason why the COVID pandemic is over is because everybody got vaccinated. Well, almost everybody. One who didn't get vaccinated was the defending Australian Open champion, Novak Djokovic. So the tennis reporter Mike Dixon, who wrote back at the beginning of 2022 when he was banned from Australia, participating in the 2022 Australian Open, Novak Djokovic could ruin his chance of becoming the GOAT, greatest of all time, by refusing to take the vaccine. It is a strange hill to die on for a player who is so desperate to be loved. Well, Mike Dixon just collapsed and died suddenly at the Australian Open at the age of 59. And Novak Djokovic, in what many might thought was a backhanded condolences to Mike Dixon family, rest in peace. And there was a heckler during one of Novak Djokovic's match who decided that he would decide to be a vaccine advocate on the court.
4 match points.
Please.
Now, I think that heckler actually motivated him to get that ace because the year after he was banned from both the Australian Open and the US Open, he won because he wanted to win because he was resentful at being kicked out for not making the choice not to take the COVID vaccine. So it would have reminded him of all of that injustice and motivated him to make that ace. So if you just remind Novak, why didn't you get the vax? That he's probably going to win another Grand Slam with that. And there's also been some other Tragic news. Tributes flow for Melbourne heckler that told Novak Djokovic to go get vaccinated dies of a heart attack. A tennis fan that heckled Novak Djokovic to get vaccinated has tragically died just hours after leaving the Australian Open. Tributes have flown for Victorian public servant David Adamson, 36, who collapsed at his home from a heart attack just a few hours after the match. Just 2 days after taking his 8th booster, Adamson died waiting 3 hours for Ambulance Victoria to arrive at his house in Fitzroy. He was a real pillar of the community during COVID, hiding under his bed, waiting for Daniel Andrews to tell him it's safe to come out. He was so vigilant, wearing a mask everywhere, even when riding his moped to work. He triple masked for everyone else's protection, his wife, Sandra, announced in a teary Facebook post. It's really tragic. He was taken from us so soon, but I'm glad he got vaccinated 8 times, or it could have been worse. Victorian Premier Jacinta Allen has announced all attendees at the Australian Open will wear masks in solidarity, as well as an honorary vaccination ceremony during the Welcome to Country and David's remembrance before the men's final. No, this is satire from the Economic Zone, formerly known as Australia website. Although that's supposed to be a dude, that looks more like a lady there, but you can hardly tell beneath those masks. Now, because nobody is scared of COVID anymore, and the JN1 wave has peaked with with just a slight bump in hospitalizations with COVID and deaths with COVID. The forever COVID crowd, the COVIDians, they're still beating the fear drums about long COVID. The more times you catch COVID, the more chances you get of getting crippling long COVID, which will cripple your internal organs and fry your brain. Our Victorian Department of Health has released 3 videos of people claiming to suffer from long COVID. And with the catch line, if the best way to avoid long COVID is not to get COVID at all, and still suggest people wear a mask as a foolproof way to not get COVID. Long COVID on the whole is bullshit. Of course, there's some people who have ongoing health issues post-viral infection. And if I was to get lagging symptoms of COVID, I would much rather live a free life and get the sniffles a number of times. I would happily get COVID 100 times for the rest of my life as the price of freedom, going out everywhere when I like without wearing a mask. So this is just their desperation. These are the people who claim that they care about the vulnerable, but a lot of them wish that there's a new deadly variant to teach people a lesson, or they want another pandemic to teach people a lesson, so they suffer, so they wear masks. This masking religion. I mean, I just laugh at them now. Like, they are full deranged people. And like I said, they claim that they're the caring type, but they're people that who wear masks and who claim that who are forever COVID people are some of the nastiest people you'll possibly imagine. All right, let's move over to the US. And so the New Hampshire primary is tomorrow. We might know the results almost instantaneously, like we did with the Iowa caucus, because as soon as a few votes were counted, Trump was already declared the winner. So after the Iowa caucus, Vivek Ramaswamy dropped out, endorsed Donald Trump, and appeared with him at a campaign rally. And then in the last 24 hours, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has dropped out via a video message and endorsed Donald Trump, and said that Nikki Haley is part of the old failed Republican guard of the past. So that's on paper, it's a two-horse race. Donald Trump and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley and UN ambassador. Though Nikki Haley, she hasn't got the endorsement of the two South Carolina senators, Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham. They're both endorsing Donald Trump. It's the people at her rally. Like, has anyone ever like? I'm yet to meet a authentic Nikki Haley supporter. Like, I swear the people at her rallies are just paid. And neocon Nikki Haley is her nickname because she supports every foreign adventure that the neocons want to go on. She also supports is a supporter of progressive identity politics. She's trying to make up for, I think, her Civil War gaffe when she failed to mention anything about slavery when she was talking about the Civil War. Maybe she'd been reading Thomas DiLorenzo's books, The Real Lincoln, and Lincoln is Exposed, which actually talk about how Lincoln it was about power, not about freeing the slaves. But I digress. So Nikki Haley, she claimed that in the 1980s she was a victim of anti-Indian racist discrimination when she tried to enter a beauty pageant.
If you want to know what it was like growing up, I was disqualified from a beauty pageant because I wasn't white or black, because they didn't know where to put me. So look, I know the hardships, the pain that come with racism.
And now, as I mentioned last week, Rand Paul launched nevernikki.com. I've got the clip this week, so I'll play it. And he lists point by point why all conservatives, libertarians, and Republicans should be Never Nikki.
Good morning, everyone. As I told you yesterday, I'm ready to say something about the presidential race. I've had a long relationship with Donald Trump, and there's a lot to like there. I'm also a big fan of a lot of the fiscal conservatism of Ron DeSantis. I think Vivek Ramaswamy's been an important voice. Also have listened to and met with the independent Bobby Kennedy. I'm not yet ready to make a decision, but I am ready to make a decision on someone who I cannot support. So I'm announcing this morning that I'm Never Nikki. And if you go to nevernikki.net, you can let her know that you're not a supporter either. I don't think any informed or knowledgeable libertarian or conservative should support Nikki Haley. I've seen her attitude towards our interventions overseas. I've seen her involvement in the military-industrial complex, $8 million being paid to become part of the team. But I've also seen her indicate that she thinks you should be registered to use the internet, that people posting ideas anonymously. I think she fails to understand that our republic was founded upon people like Ben Franklin, Sam Adams, Madison, John Jay, and others who posted routinely. For fear of the government, they posted routinely anonymously. And I think her failure to really understand that, or to think that you should register through the government somehow for the internet, is something that should disqualify her in the minds of all libertarian-leaning conservatives. So I'm announcing today I'm Never Nikki. You can go to nevernikki.net and sign up and show her that you're Never Nikki also. Thanks.
All right, let's go over to Europe, where the German people are rising up finally against their globalist government, who have allowed the country to be flooded with millions of illegal immigrants, and also against their energy and farm policies. The farmers have marched on Berlin, and it's probably the most epic farmers revolt, a convoy that there has ever been.
Wow. Wow.
And now the Alternative for Deutschland party, which is polling at 25% in national polls now. They, ever since their founding over a decade ago, they have gotten more and more base. And one of their leaders, Renee Springer, has vowed that we will return foreigners to their homeland by the millions. Vows mass deportations as his party reaches high polling. And so, as you can see there, they're only 5% behind the main Conservative Party there, the Christian Democrats. They even are higher in the 30s in the former Eastern Germany. Now, there is a campaign now to ban Alternative for Deutschland, claiming that under the country's national socialism ban, they've seized upon that a AfD staffer to the one of the other leaders, Alice Weidel, Roland Hartwig, met with Martin Sellner, the Austrian leader of the identitarian movement. So he's been fired, that staffer. So there was a protest in Berlin for democracy against the AfD. And the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz from the Social Democratic Party, he said, right-wing extremists are attacking our democracy. They want to destroy our unity. And Keith Woods summarized it. You know, when a Western politician uses the phrase our democracy, that they're about to do something really democratic like ban a political party or throw people in jail for speech. Remember that local news videos. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. When somebody says this is extremely dangerous to our democracy, they are the ones who are extremely dangerous to our democracy. I mean, the Democrats wanting to throw Trump in prison, strike him off the ballot, to protect democracy by excluding him from the democratic process. I mean, Trump is going to be spending this year in and out of court. I mean, we could end up with a situation where Trump is in prison, but he can still be elected president and then pardon himself of the federal offenses that he has been charged with. Like, we could still have a really absurd 2024. And yeah, I agree, Ron, that I hope the AfD are legit. And Germany thought that they had crushed this far-right resurgence back in 2022 when they arrested over 20 members of the Reichsbürger movement, who now Reichsbürger are people who don't believe that the Federal Republic of Germany that was founded by the Allies after World War II in 1949. Well, there was the French, American, and UK blocks of Allied occupied Germany formed Federal Republic of Germany, and the Soviet Union founded the German Democratic Republic, which of course wasn't democratic. But when they reunified, they had to get permission from the Western Allies for that to happen. And now, apparently it's alarming because the Reichsbürgers are buying up rural land to set up communities there. Oh no, the horror. Though, do they also know that because both Germany and Poland are part of the European Union and the Schengen area, because after World War II, Germany had land stolen from it in the east. Stalin stole land from Poland in the east, and so Poland was compensated for it by having German lands in the east. Don't they know that these under their own laws, these Reichsbürgers could actually buy land in Poland, in the areas that used to be part of Germany, and set up German communities there, so they could do that as well. So the German federal election isn't due until September 2025. Now, the current coalition, so Olaf Scholz, Social Democrats, the Free Democrats, and the Greens, they're trying to pass an emergency law to grant hundreds of migrants citizenship so they can vote and allow dual citizenship, because German law doesn't allow it again. So they're going to try and rig next year's election a demographic style there by getting as much new Germans on the ballot as possible. I am a German paleoconservative Australian. As you can see, I feel quite strongly about what's happened to Germany. Germans are taught to feel constant shame about their country because of an horrific 12-year period. Though German history goes back centuries, millennium. You go back to the German Empire in the 19th century, and then the Holy Roman Empire. And so the Germans, they're finally getting back their pride, national identity. I was in Harndorf, the German town in South Australia during my holiday there. It's the one of the last remaining German settlements, because the German settlements in Australia were culturally genocided during the First World War with all of the anti-German sentiment. So German Australians were forced to change their name, and German towns in Australia changed their name from German sounding names to anglicized names. And now, speaking of Anglo news, an update last week on Joey Barton. His campaign against the affirmative action female commentators on the men's football. One of the female commentators he has been most vocally critical of is Enai Aluku, former lioness. And now she says she's had to flee overseas because of all the mean things said on the internet.
Open and honest. And I'm human, right? And I'm more than happy to admit that I've been scared this week. I've genuinely been scared this week. I didn't leave my house until Friday, and I'm now abroad. Because it's really important to say that online abuse has a direct impact on your safety and how you feel, how safe you feel in real life. I felt under threat this week. I felt like something was going to happen to me. And I don't say that for anyone to feel sorry for me. I say that for people to understand the reality and the impact that hate speech has, the impact that racism has, the impact that sexism and misogyny has. They're creating a culture where people don't want to go to work, people don't want to leave their house, people feel under threat.
Oh, so you're not going to commentate again, not going to go to work. That's excellent. So she says she's abroad. I'm not sure if she's gone back home to Nigeria, because she's a dual citizen of the UK and Nigeria. Now, Jeremy Vine has commenced legal proceedings against Joey Barton over the bike nonce hashtag, I assume, accusing him of defamation and harassment. And now, Jeremy Vine, given that he got Alex Belfield 5 years in prison, is probably wanting the same for Joey Barton. It probably what Saint Jeremy Vine I mean, if you dare criticize him, well, Joe Barton could be going to jail for longer than he did for that assault in Liverpool. Who knows, he could even go to jail for longer than his brother did for 17 years for murder. Because yes, that is, you know, Saint Jeremy Vine. I don't know who all these people are that just love Jeremy Vine's BBC Radio 2 show and Vine on 5. I mean, seriously, Joe Barton came up with a different hashtag calling him a pedal file. Get it? Pedal as in bike pedaling, and file. So yes, 2023 was the year that Brits finally were rid of Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby off their screens. So hopefully this is the year that Brits are free of Jeremy Vine finally. Now let's go over to our Tasman cousin, which, I mean, things are pretty grim here in Australia, but New Zealand is being made great again by their new coalition government. National Prime Minister Chris Luxon, Deputy Prime Minister New Zealand First Winston Peters, and ACT leader David Seymour. And the loser left, they're really starting to lose it. The Maori race activists, they are planning to protest the loss of their extra special rights because the Maori Health Authority is being abolished. There should only be one health authority treating all New Zealanders equally. This was the end of the maiden speech by their 21-year-old Maori MP from the racist Maori party, Hana Rapoti Mata Clark. I'm sure I'm not the only one who, before rugby union matches between the Wallabies and the All Blacks, are wondering, why do the Wallabies have to just sit there and take the Maori haka there and just stand there like stunned mullets when they're basically being, you know, threatened before the match? I mean, I've always just found it grossly grossly grotesque that the Wallabies just have to just put up with that before a game, and they get basically no right of reply. Now the New Zealand Greens, they have lost, one of their former stars, Golrez Garaman, who has resigned after she went on a shoplifting spree last year at 3 luxury retailers. She has had to resign. And so Due de Boer at rightminds.nz has written an obituary to her political career, Fall and Fall of Golrez Garam. David Seymour, the ACT leader, called her a menace to free speech, which apparently was threatening and bullying her. So back from the beginning, there were allegations she'd embellished her CV And that this was before it shown she got chummy with the perpetrators of the Rwandan genocide and coveted paper that downplayed it. So she was born in Iran. So Vail Golrez Garam. I mean, the fact that I mean, the far left, there are far left activists who excused shoplifting because they believe that it's okay to steal from multinationals, even though you're stealing from lots of the smaller people who helped put that product on the shelf. So you're stealing from them as well. And plus, if everyone shoplifted, the whole of society would fall apart. But maybe that's the point. That's what these far left activists want to achieve. Now, the BFD, which DEI also writes for, from the river to the sea, designer wear shall be free. So I'd end on, well, a commiseratory note. Sorry to see you go. All right, that's the end for Tim's News Explosion for another week. Managed to get it under an hour and a half. Now, I'll see you all on Friday, hopefully, to the Australia Day celebration at the Doncaster Bowling Club, hosted by actor Damien Richardson. Richard Wollstonecroft will also be there. You can still get your ticket. I will put the link into the live chat. $25 for adults, family $60, children $10, children under 5 free. So there'll be barefoot lawn bowls, face painting for kids, and a DJ there. Drink at member prices. And also, if you want to support our work in 2024, you can support the Unshackled with a premium membership at theunshackled.net/membership. And we also have I've decided to finally start our Substack blog. I'll just get that up. So I'll put that in the chat as well, the unshackled.net .substack.com. So you can also subscribe for $5 per month to our Substack. I'm planning to migrate our email list over to Substack in the next week. So I've published the link to tonight's show on the unshackled.substack.com, and also Richard's recent reports. So Australia Day is January 26, you cunts, and the Jewish tunnels in New York. And don't forget, also on Australia Day, the 2023 Unshackler Award winners will be announced. That's when voting will close. Our first show for the year was a Wilmsfront feature with Damien Ferry, who does the awards, going through the nominees. So the 10 categories still open for voting. So Regressive of the Year, Australian Unshackler of the Year, International Unshackler of the Year, International Cuck of the Year, Cis White Male of the Year, Triggered Feminist of the Year, Culture Warrior of the Year, Degenerate of the Year, International Media Personality of the Year, and Fake News Award of the Year. I'll put the link in there as well. So happy Australia Day to everyone on this Australia month. Hopefully I'll see you all on Sunday, so we can salute the end of Australia month with Australia month campaign founder Ben Shan, the Dusty Bogan Dustin Christian lobby, and hopefully I'll see you all on Friday. So stay safe, stay patriotic, stay sane, stay happy, and stay optimistic. Good night, everybody. Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.